button and is now being recorded. Okay, good day everyone. I want to thank you for attending today's webinar. The presentation is entitled The Future of AI and Machine Learning. The session is being recorded and will be available on the IT Service Management Community Group's website within 5 business days. The overview of the presentation, we'll have about a 45-minute presentation. There will be time left over for Q&A after the last slide, and everyone will be on mute. Please use the Q&A window to ask questions and use the chat feature if you want to talk with your fellow attendees. I'm pleased to present today our very special guest, Simon Grice. He is the Director, Chief Innovation Office at ServiceNow. And without any delay, let's start the presentation.
Thanks for that introduction. And you know, if we're talking about the future of work and AI, I suppose I should have an opinion on both. So why not start with AI? Certainly it is relevant to the future of work. And I could introduce myself in this way, a traditional kind of slide. But wouldn't it be fun if you could just go to LinkedIn and on the side have a little, hey, let's view that person's personality. And then based on the artificial intelligence, then you could get a report that actually tells you much more about me than what I'd maybe put in the slide. So here's the real me. Well, according to artificial intelligence and my LinkedIn profile, at least. Now, it sounds a bit far-fetched, but this is real. crystalknows.com is a website that you can go to. In fact, let's go there. So I can, on LinkedIn today, hit view profile, and I can get an assessment of whoever I'm looking at. So if you're on LinkedIn today, people can do this and find out about you as an individual. And with this, I can look at my personality and I can compare that with other people. And this will even help me to engage them. So if I want to send an email, in this case to Jim, who is an architect type, maybe I want to schedule a meeting or collaborate on a project, I can get some advice. In other words, it will give me a template of what wording I should use in order to best engage him, in this case, to schedule a meeting. And it can also then give me relationship advice on how best to work with Jim. So what comes natural to him, what energizes him, what drains him, and when I'm speaking to him, how should I modify my language? This is artificial intelligence being used to help me get deeply personal. I was actually working with a company, 2 weeks ago, Raphael, the founder of a company called Weimar. Now, this is actually based on work that came out of a university in Switzerland, and they put this company together. Just had 6 million in VC funding. And so it's a really early days startup, but they're basically using video and audio in order to profile an individual. Now, one of the ways they could use that is, in this example, for recruitment. So if you're screening a student, as an example, prior to giving them a place on the course, you get them to submit a video, 2-minute video, talking about why they want to do the course and why they want to come to your university. At the end of that, you can tell, are they hardworking, professional, are they motivated? And we can make an accurate prediction as to whether that student would actually graduate from your university based on a 2-minute video submission as part of their application. Well, obviously, if we're incentivized to make sure we increase the number of successful graduates, then having this kind of AI on the intake would be pretty appealing. So a bit of a weird start, I guess, to just jump straight in there with a story around that. So let's just contextualize why I'm going down this deeply personal route from an AI perspective, and how that relates back to the future of work. And this is really a conversation that I first heard from Jacob Morgan, who's an independent evangelist in the sort of employee experience space. And he tells us about how the workforce has evolved from that of utility, where we just provided people with those basic tools in order to get the job done, to then competition increasing and putting that pressure on us to increase productivity. But of course, this was back at a time when it was the human that we used to automate. So we didn't really care about the individual. We were just trying to optimize the process in order to get the maximum consistency and throughput of any of those processes. So this then gave way to the era of engagement. So we, definitely here in Silicon Valley, we think about those, free food, foosball, and all of those perks that come with a job nowadays. But it really was when we saw the introduction of the employee opinion survey, and we started to care about that happiness and well-being of the individuals. Now, what's happened here, of course, is the opinion surveys have just leveled off, or worse, tailed off, because we've now entered into the era of experience. And certainly we see this across the generations as well, but this is really about how we're going to have to start changing our core workplace practices around our people, and how our people are going to have to embody and represent that purpose of the organization. You may have also seen the Business Roundtable, where they had 200 of the top companies that we know here in America, that actually put out a press release that said, yeah, we no longer believe that the only stakeholder or the only responsibility we have as a corporation is to our shareholders. So that sense of purpose, that sense of responsibility is resulting in this era of experiences. And of course, experience is a kind of multi-dimensional thing. So we know that the future of work is going to be experience-based, but we also predict that that future work is going to be deeply and uniquely human-centric. And that's why the examples of the AI that I started out with here were really showing how we can start to utilize AI to get to know the individual. Now, why would we want to know someone that well in terms of them being a student or being a faculty member? Well, we need to provide service. And when we want to provide service, we want that to be insanely good. In fact, just to pop back, and in fact, I'm going to pause for a moment, because if this becomes a one-way dialogue, it could become quite scary. Feel free to comment and put questions. Please do chip in if, from a facilitation perspective, there's any questions that you think would be good to enrich and make this a two-way dialogue. Did I pause for long enough to see if there was any feedback there? I'm just going to pop back to Beamer, because another use case that they were working on was with BMW. And BMW obviously pride themselves in the experience of the driver's experience. And so they're actually doing a pilot with Vima where they're using video and audio to be able to modify the interaction between the car and the driver to make sure the car is interacting in a way that the driver most likes. So that is insane to think about, that future of work being so beautifully in sync with me. And of course, as we look at AI and the future of work, a lot of people are really worried about automation taking away their job. For a lot of jobs, absolutely it will. In fact, LinkedIn, in a recent study, suggested that something like 70 something million jobs will be lost as a result of automation in the workplace. But in the same report, they're saying that 133 million jobs will be created. Now, for anyone that's been in technology for a while, they're generally, I don't think I've ever come across anyone working in technology over their career that's doing the same job in technology that they were doing when they began their career. So change as we evolve is kind of normal. So as we're automating a lot of this work, we're actually freeing up people to do more meaningful work. So we are seeing a complete shift in terms of those skill sets of the future. And hey, I'm talking to an educational organization, so I know you get this, but in that same report from LinkedIn, they were making predictions around the type of roles that would be filling that 133 million jobs in the future. But we know this, we've got to educate differently as we're going forward, because there is going to be different needs on our graduates. So with this deeply human-centric approach going forward, I probably drew on a couple of other sources of information. So it's not just me sharing this with you. So Deloitte are looking at this in the following way. So we can see work, workforce, and workplace. So the same 3 dimensions, and they're talking about that, you know, level 1, the work, what level of automation can we get to? And obviously that's the focus of today's conversation in terms of the automation thinking. But I found another interesting source that confirms this, and it is, in fact, yourselves. So I did think when I got to this, when I found this, and in particular the statement here, am I going to be preaching to the choir? So I really, I hope that this comes across as insightful rather than preachy. But look at the wording here in the middle, is a series of deep and coordinated culture, workforce, and technology shifts that enable new educational and operational models. How beautiful is that? Absolutely love that statement. And if I was to turn it into a purpose, then it might be a purpose like this: we make the world of education work better for students. Or maybe just, we make the world of education work better. And if that was our purpose, it would make sense that these would be our goals. Now, to show the linkage, the company that I'm working for has that similar purpose. That's the play that I was making here. So we make the world of work work better for people. In order to do that, you have to have an opinion on the future of work, which I've been sharing with you today. But the latter part of our purpose is work better for people, which means how do we put technology in service of people? And that's the kind of like, okay, I get it, I get where we're going, but how do I get there? You know, how do I fix this? So what we've seen is companies have been shifting to a cloud-first approach, and that's really about how can I consume public cloud. I want to modernize and transform the way I've been doing IT in the past. So they're consolidating down onto 4 to 6 strategic platforms. And of course, what we've been very good at, as well as celebrating complexity, which we have to learn to stop doing in IT, what we've been very good at from an enterprise software perspective is making solutions that are really focused on that primary job role. So within work today, when I have to swivel chair and become a consumer of a business service or interact with some other department, that's when that experience of getting work done really becomes really quite crappy. So how do I deliver a great experience and use that artificial intelligence to automate and streamline the process? I have to have a new way of thinking about this. And so this is where we talk about putting technology in service of people, work better for people. And a promise that we have is to deliver digital workflows that create great experiences and unlock productivity, which is along these lines. Now, maybe again, to have an illustration of what this might look like, I can draw upon real life experience in that we're a just over 10,000 person organization now, and we're deployed in this way. So this is our CIO, Chris Beddy, here at ServiceNow. This is what his world looks like. We have SAP at the back end, we have Workday, we have these various systems of record, including ServiceNow as our system of record in IT. We do not have a traditional intranet site here at ServiceNow. If I, as an employee, need to get service from ServiceNow, I go to a single portal for engagement. And that looks like this. So in fact, let's just make sure I'm logged on here. No, I wasn't. Good job I did. And John, if you're seeing any questions come in as well, please feel free to reach out. So,
okay. Hey, Simon?
Yeah.
A lot of conversation in this new service catalog paper that EDUCAUSE is working on has been around what has commonly been called endpoint devices or endpoint services. So, deploying desktops, mobile devices, phones, things like that to our employees is now moving to platform services, or no, sorry, it's moving to, escape me. There's more of this kind of moving from endpoint to more of just totally, sorry about that, but more of this digitized services for our employees, kind of with that customer experience. So what are you seeing as far as a trend moving from these devices that are deployed to our employees to more of these digital services that can enhance the consumer experience or the employee experience?
Yeah, so we're certainly seeing a transition
workplace services. That's what we're calling it. Workplace services.
Yeah, so we're certainly seeing a transition towards a kind of bring your own device. So if I look at myself here at ServiceNow, I'm still provided a corporate laptop, but no other IT. I show up with my own phone. I don't even get provided a company phone. Yeah. So I think we'll see a continuation of that in that I'll have that freedom to interact. And if we looked at that, or if we projected that down towards that gig economy, that would be because I'd be working for multiple companies simultaneously. It makes no sense for me to be only working for a single employer. So I don't know if that helps or answers the question, but I can certainly see that move towards me not having to worry so much about that endpoint. I guess another thought on that would be that access layer. So from a ServiceNow perspective, we've got a portal and we've got a mobile way of accessing this. But we're just talking about providing service to someone, and that access layer for service could be anywhere, and we want to meet them where they're at. So if someone's in Slack, or someone's in Teams, or or someone's in Facebook, and they want something from us, it should be possible from there to be able to reach out. So that's our prediction, as it were. Well, that's what we're working towards. Any other questions at this point?
Nothing right now, Simon.
So what we're looking at here, and I thought I'd use ourselves as an example here, because yeah, I'm an employee, but I could think about this as a faculty member, or I could think about this as a student landing page, if you wish. But the idea here is you don't see any department or functional name here. We like to think of that in IT in terms of our lists and forms, but this is all about me as a person. it knows my location, and it knows what services are available to me. So it's already picked up that I happen to have a role as a manager here at ServiceNow. So I have an additional widget that's showing here. And if I expand this out, then as a manager, we're making available all the resources that are going to help me as a manager to be successful. And yes, I may link out to other systems from here. So, you know, we're not a learning management system. So if I go to the learning portal, it's just the fact that this is my one starting point to get this information. I have some, I have a overdue survey, you can see, with some jobs to do. And again, if there's any requests being made, then it will look for other people that match my profile, and it will show me the requests or the most popular requests that they're making, rather than just generic popular requests. And then I mentioned that we have this instead of an intranet site. So this is where I come if something's bust, I need to make a request, or I need to find out about typically making a request. So hence you can see the requests, the knowledge, and the information that's available to me here. The other thing that a traditional intranet is used for is the push communication. So you can see down here, I have an integration where I'm getting all the latest news feeds. So we have teamed up with Facebook here at ServiceNow, and we are using Workplace. We call it Now at Work, in order to be able to have that push communication, you know, with all the corporate news. But we can then put that collaborative element around that. So again, feeding that up in here, but this is where I come if I need something. That's where that's where I'll go just to see what's going on, right? In terms of that push communication. So let's call up the virtual agent from here, and let's ask it what's up, because we'll stay hip and trendy like we were doing, and it says, oh, right, this is what you've got going on, and here's a fun fact about the company. Just starting to get that kind of, let's be a bit more human in terms of our interaction. Maybe there's an individual that I want to find. So I showed in the graphic earlier on that behind the scenes here, our system of record for human resources is actually Workday. God, I couldn't get my words out for a minute then. So I can search directly through the portal, directly through here to be able to find an individual when I can spell a name. And I don't need to then go off and look in that third system or get a different UI. I'm not swivel chairing. That information can be brought from the HR system and shown to me directly. So perhaps I now want to reach out to my boss, so I can just hit the Slack icon here, and it will open up Slack in a direct communication with my boss in this case. Or maybe I want to be able to see where that faculty member is based. So I click on the little space, and it shows me in the interactive floor plan where their office is. Now the next bit that we're working on is, if I'm on my mobile, I want to be able to click on that and it gives me walking directions to get there. And incidentally, this is the Nivolo solution, which is one of our partners that specialize in facilities management. But I've navigated from that portal from HR information to facilities information, but it's all that seamless experience. So again, just some little examples. Any questions that are coming up, or chat that's coming up that we can pick up at this point?
Nothing so far, Simon.
Okay, so it is a journey to get there, and the other side of this is as we move forward, we're going to start having to deliver with an agility that we've never experienced before. So I started, when was it, about 6 months ago, maybe longer than that now, I started to experience proliferation of apps. And it was when I had to create these folders on my mobile to collect together my different media apps. And it was because I was having that experience of, oh yeah, where was I having that conversation? I had to go back and try and find that conversation. And then it gets even worse when you start to realize you're struggling with some of these things that are coming along with technology. And I'm 48 for those that need to know, but Generation X, dealing with this kind of proliferation of apps is so much easier for that Generation Z. So this is actually a photograph that was taken by my colleague who was over in APJ. And this is the taxi driver that's getting paid to drive him from the airport to the hotel. It's not the only job he's doing. So this ability to deal with technology is why the experience, I'm going to use technology for a very specific need, and I'm going to be quite happy to dip in and out of multiple experiences based on what I'm trying to get done.
Simon, can we, there are a couple questions came in before we move on, if you don't mind. So Todd's asking about the features, and I think specifically when you looked at, when you were showing the various systems that, that ServiceNow could talk to, are these more of, is any AI driven, or was it more of the integrations?
What do we mean by talking to things through AI?
Like the HR system, like you showed an example, you're able to pull up the HR, the person through the HR system, click on them, open up Slack, find out where their office is, navigate to their office. All of these integrations, are they more integrations with systems, or is there any AI behind it?
Yeah, great question. So just to differentiate between where I started today's presentation and the demo I gave, the demo I gave is utilizing something called Integration Hub, which is our central library of integration. So we're using standard integration technology to talk to the systems of record.
Okay. And we have another question from chat. So Chris is asking, how do you leverage the in-platform analytics to improve the user experience and in-house portal intranet?
Yeah, great question. So we are looking at, well, I say I'd love to say we're more automated internally. We are using metrics, we're using performance analytics, which is our in-platform analytics capability to use and measure certain KPIs where we're looking at interaction. But we're also just drawing out from the system the highest search for items, and then we're picking things like that off as, right, well, if everyone's asking for this, let's introduce a new virtual agent conversation so that people can be better served. And is there anything that we can do to then prevent that? Because if it's an issue they're asking about, then they tend to be repetitive, right? And we know that we can preempt the fix.
Okay, thank you.
So gearing up for this, this is a Forrester report looking at this no-code to pro-code concept. So we're all familiar with traditional development, which tends to sit over on the left-hand side here. And that's really important, and it will remain important moving forward. But building everything from scratch takes time. Whereas over on the right-hand side of this graphic, the business has a problem and they want to basically self-serve. So I need a platform that spans all of this if I'm going to be able to move at speed whilst keeping everything secure and having those guardrails in place. So we're a platform that talks to this. I'll be honest, if I had a barometer here and the dial would be on the left-hand side here towards the no code, but it wouldn't be there yet. So I can use no-code capabilities on the platform. I can drag and drop to build applications on the platform, but I need to know the platform in order to develop on it. On the left-hand side, in terms of where this is going, all I would need to know is the name, ServiceNow. And basically, the way I'll do app development in the future is to simply say, hey, Alexa, ask ServiceNow to build me an app. And Alexa says, sure, would you like that for the desktop or mobile? And I say, for the mobile. What would be the primary information? Student record, right? And I would go through a conversation, very natural conversation with my artificial intelligence, and bam, at the end of that conversation, I've got an app on this platform. So I may then engage with the low-code person, and this is definitely a new role that we're seeing. They tend to have experience in their title. Experience architect is the common one that we're seeing, and certainly the one that Accenture have consolidated down onto. But the experience architect would be the one then that would engage and tie together that experience with other experiences. And if, for example, they needed to have an interaction with a third-party system or a system record that they hadn't defined prior, that's where they would go out to the low-code person. The low-code would define that interaction, put it into the integration hub, the central library for integrations, and then that experience architect would be able to use that in not just that experience, but any future experiences. So we can then move at speed. But it's pretty scary to think the business could be self-serving. But in terms of a scenario, then that's actually already here on the left-hand side in the, as of this release, so 2 weeks ago, I think maybe 3, when we released the New York release, we released that with a app creation wizard. So I can literally go through, be taken through a wizard of just click, click, click in order to then build an app. Now we actually have Alexa integration. So if you wanted to power this with Alexa integration, it is actually feasible. But that's the speed at which we can develop today. So this is only going to get easier, and we want to be able to push that out so that, you know, that gig economy, they got a problem, they fix it. And we're then providing them simplicity in terms of how they're able to then fix that, hiding all of the complexity behind it. So it gears us up in terms of, you know, how we'd build a center of excellence around this, how would we work in terms of our governance models. And it takes that away from the actual technology piece, because that's now fixed, to thinking about how do we get deeply human. And so human-centered design, and if you've not kind of gone through these techniques or workshops before, here's a visualization of one taking place. We would use these human-centered design workshops to really innovate at speed so that we can then, you know, use things like the app creation wizard to be able to then rapidly build out that app. And one example of where we have engaged with a customer to innovate in this kind of way is with a prototype we built for Cal Poly. Now, John, if you wanted to jump in at this stage in terms of framing out better than me, perhaps, the specific problem statement here.
Sure. What we actually started with here with Cal Poly is that we had a service management team, and the CIO has an opinion that we're spending a lot of time and a lot of resources building out our physical spaces on campus, and our digital space is a mess. So what they started to do is they said, let's get at least all of our information for the students in one place, and so that they can access that information. But when we took a look at the information, in this case, you'll see one for graduation, we realized that the information led you to some action. So we talked about then integrating those services into the knowledge so that it's one fell swoop to get it all done. And this is one of those user-centered design workshops that actually is starting the CIO's vision rather of creating a better digital workspace for students. And there's a lot of discussion also about what happens behind this. For example, how do you take a metric of how many students are graduating today and say that because of our improvements in digital spaces, we are able to graduate a higher percentage of students. So there's more discussions beyond this about not just using the services and the knowledge integrated together, but how do we start to use artificial intelligence behind the scenes to start helping make better decisions and graduate more students.
Yeah, thanks, John. And in terms of giving you a bit of visibility of how that then developed out, I showed you our internal portal here at ServiceNow. So for Cal Poly, when we had done that workshop to see, and understand the problem statement, if anyone doesn't know, Billy is the Cal Poly mascot. And so they've linked that to their virtual agent. So it was like, let's have that really simple place to come and have that interaction. And I think another thing that they did, which was really interesting, was, but students don't come to that portal, right? They Google. So when I Google, you can see on the left-hand side here, I get those search results, which brings me into that KB article. So I then come into that knowledge, but instead of it being a static thing now, directly from that knowledge, I can click the link to check my transcribes. So that then brings me in where you can see on the right-hand side what I'm currently signed up for. So again, if I see something's wrong here, then let me just hit that button that says apply to reclassify the course, and allow me to do that directly from where I'm at in the mobile here. And once I'm done, I just sign that, hit submit, great, job done. So in terms of our promise, digital workflows, create great experiences, unlock productivity. I think this is a great example of where we can start to think about delivering those experiences. Now, one further thing from me is that this platform that we're using, the ServiceNow platform, is a development platform in itself, as mentioned, and it means that you can develop on it, but it also means that we have partners developing on it. So we have a store where you can go, and I'll show you this one as an example. This is Factor 5, a company that's been founded solely based on the applications that they're building on our platform. So if there's a problem you need to fix in your business, if it's not an out-the-box application or capability that ServiceNow already has, there's a vibrant community out there building further applications on this platform.
Simon?
Yeah.
Most of our audience here, and for me personally, I appreciate the power of even using this at a university level like Cal Poly is doing. But our sphere of influence for most of the people on the call here are really around service desk services and maybe modernizing the way that our customers engage with us through service desk, maybe using like virtual agent to source knowledge that's appropriate for us, or services that we might be interested in using like AI or natural language processing. Are you seeing customers asking for this? And where would we start?
So, okay, thanks. I'll back up a bit. Let me show you a slide that I didn't show you, which is the kind of evolutionary journey. So what we've mentioned is we're responsible for delivering the service management. We get to be the leaders in this new world as we go towards that future of work. The disciplines that we're bringing in terms of how we deliver service is exactly the same, whether it's us delivering service or whether it's HR or facilities or any other of these service providers in an organization. And so as the pressure typically starts from a HR perspective, but as that pressure comes on the business to provide better service, and better experiences around those services, they turn to IT. So everything we're learning now gives us the opportunity to grow beyond IT. But in terms of then the specifics, I'm remiss, sorry, I missed that. But AI that we've already implemented would be along the lines of when I ask someone to put a ticket into the system, I don't want them to have to waste time categorizing that. And if we get someone just to write down what that ticket is, I don't want to use my first line support staff to have to read that and then decide who they're going to assign it to, what priority does it get. That's a great example of that doesn't add value to my life. So we're using the machine learning today in the platform to be able to look at those past records, and then based on that we have that prediction model so that when someone generates a ticket they simply tell us what's wrong, so that we can then use that to confidently predict who's the correct assignment group for it, what priority does it have, and how do we want to be categorizing that. And that capability is a baked-in platform capability. So any task within the system we can learn from. So that kind of being able to automatically categorize and route work as a result of past experience, that's a real time saver. Just pause there. Am I going in the right route with this conversation?
Yeah, I mean, that helps. I think that's kind of what you're alluding to as a starting point. I can see beyond that, even offering, these are related services that you might want as a customer coming in, just using natural language to instead of having to like object deviation, like just do like, it's a kept or trickle thing, but basically just a natural way that people speak to be able to get access to services that, first of all, they didn't even know they needed until somebody presents it to them. I'm just talking beyond, the automatically learning where to assign things and, based on history.
Okay, so we're certainly looking at that from that kind of virtual agent approach. So the natural language understanding for sure. Being able to take multiple intents in order to be able to provide a more natural and intuitive response. And the thing that we're looking at the moment that will be coming out in the next release is the natural language query. So the ability to be able to just turn around and say, hey, ServiceNow, show me all the incidents for the APG region that were assigned to this group, and have the virtual agent be able to understand that and go off and run the query and then return that report to me in the virtual agent, whether that be on my mobile or whether that be on my desktop. And then maybe once I've got that report, I just hit the button to email that or message it to my boss, say. That kind of interaction. That's where we'll be using AI to help get work done in that sense.
Right, that helps things. Anybody have some other questions for Simon or for John before he moves on? Just type it in the Q&A or in the chat window.
So I wanted to make that prediction of the future. And we've spoken, and I've used a couple of examples of AI, but at this point, that rounds out the material that I wanted to cover so that we could open up to questions maybe and have that discussion.
I'm not seeing any questions in the Q&A, but we have a few minutes, so continue to add your questions or type them in the chat window.
Yeah, one of the things, Simon, that I'd like to have you comment on for the group, I know it's a pretty common ask that I get, is a lot of people replace things like simple ticketing tools with ServiceNow early on, and the platform was primarily considered a ticketing piece. But then we see a lot of things as service management teams mature, that the platform actually changes ownership and changes what it's being used for. Can you kind of talk us through that evolution a little bit about, how you've seen the platform move? I know in commercial space, we're even seeing this go more to where we're serving like a pipeline of demands for IT in the beginning for incident, problem, and change. But now we're satisfying a different pipeline, like organizationally, what does that look like?
Yeah, so I think it links into pretty well most, if not all, CEOs have digital transformation as something that's on their agenda. They may not call it that. And there's two sides to the digital transformation. There's we want to fundamentally change our business model. We're going to be disruptive in that way. Or there's the view of digital transformation, which is around modernizing and transforming what we're doing today. We've even seen that breaking out into a couple of roles. So sometimes it's the CIO that's wearing both hats, or sometimes they're breaking it out and bringing in a chief digital officer to perform the change in the business model side of things. But if we equate that to 20 years ago and how we used to view a CFO within an organization, and finance was that back office system, to where we are today, where the CFO is fundamentally driving strategy and on that board within an organization, we're seeing that same change in role for the CIO. So what we're seeing is that discipline and how IT are leading this sort of evolution of the service management beyond IT. We've been talking about this for a long time, right? We've been talking about enterprise service management for a while, but we're seeing now, because we've got the technology and this desire to simplify the experience and hide all of the complexity, we're seeing that as a driver that enables us to grow service management beyond IT and engage that across those other functions and help them understand how to deliver service. Did that answer your question, John, or were you planning on going somewhere else with the answer?
No, that was exactly it. We see one of the tell signs, I think, for a lot of the people on this call is that they're starting to talk more about BRMs. And when you start talking about bringing a BRM onto the ServiceNow team, it's a pretty good indicator that you're not doing IT services alone anymore, like incident management, change management and problem management. That BRM is usually brought in to start interacting with the business and to provide the service instead of just supporting it like a traditional ITSM team does.
Yeah, more likely, John, that relationship management role is going to be under the strategy arm of the organization, not just within the service management group.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's a great question here. Anonymous attendee is asking, how do you see the growth of the platform? I think specifically talk about ServiceNow as it shifts into kind of the customer relationship management world and competing with other platforms such as Salesforce at the other. They're just adding that note here that there's a lot of risk to organization that are heavily invested in multiple SaaS platforms. Induces confusion to user population, is not likely to quickly shift between platforms. This is a great question.
Yeah, it is a fabulous question, and I wouldn't be arrogant enough to know that I have the prediction of how it's going to play out. I really like Salesforce, Force.com. They're obviously on the same trajectory. You also have Amazon Web Services that, whilst they've started out being very developer-centric in terms of all of their hundreds of service offerings, they've come at it from, I need to build things from scratch in that traditional development world, but they're currently building out no-code solutions because they're coming in, they understand the value of this space. So, most IT leaders I speak to don't want to go all in with Amazon because they are fearful of that lock-in. So they're looking to spread their bets, and that's why we're talking, or seeing at least, that they're telling us that they're consolidating on between 4 and 6 strategic platforms. So yeah, I put the logos up earlier on. I'd expect Salesforce to be in there. I'd expect Amazon to be in there. Why would ServiceNow be the orchestration of service? I think one of the key things for me is that the last department to get its enterprise system of record was in fact IT. And by having that single system of record to plan, build, deliver, run our IT services, then that naturally underpins that back office and front office and becomes the glue that can break down the barriers between those other silos in the organization. So, it's an interesting game. It's going to be playing out over years. In my head, at least, there's quite a clear divide. I think ServiceNow is a fabulous platform and technology for being that layer that delivers the service and therefore becomes the broker of services. So if you're getting infrastructure from Amazon today, but you can get a better price getting it from Azure tomorrow, it should be super easy to swap out service providers as part of an overall business service offering that you're delivering. And I think in order to get that kind of agility in your service, you have to own IT. So I think that's why we're in a good position to own that particular space. So in terms of the overall, IT spend and industry, then, obviously we're still going to have Microsoft, we're still going to have Salesforce, we're still going to have Amazon, but we do all have our own unique place to play in. Hopefully that was an okay answer.
Great. Well, we're about 5 minutes to the hour, so we've run out of time for questions. Thank you so much for all the questions that came in and for your patience in answering those, especially mine, Simon and John, so thank you. So this concludes the presentation. I want to thank Simon and John for their time, sharing their insight and wisdom with us. Please refer to the slide decks for presenters' contact information that will be sent out along with the recording. And a survey also will be sent out as well. Please take it when you see it. Stay tuned for more exciting events. Refer to the IT Service Management Community Group's website for all the latest information. Just want to make a plug. If you're going to the annual conference, be sure to visit all the vendor booths to learn how they can help your organization achieve their IT service management goals. Check out some of their mini sessions while you're there as well. Connect with your fellow IT service management community members by joining our Slack team. It's ITSM-CG-EDUCAUSE.slack.com. EDUCAUSE 19 is the conference channel, all one word. If you need to be reminded about this information, send me an email, mpouts@usc.edu, and I'll send you more information. We're always looking for fresh ideas, so if you have an idea for a webinar or have a desire to present, please contact me by sending an email to the listserv or to me directly. If you're not a member, please consider joining today. Again, the transcripts and recordings and other information will be available within 5 business days on the ITSM CG website. It's a good place to view upcoming events and past recording. Again, thank you, Simon and John, for your time, and thank you, everyone, for attending today's event. Bye-bye.
Thanks all.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.